I remember the candlelight flickering against her face. Vanessa always looked stunning in soft light. The curve of her cheek, the slow glide of her fingers around the rim of her wine glass. It was the kind of moment that should have hinted at seduction. Instead, it carried a grenade wrapped in red lipstick and rose. "I think we should try an open marriage," she said, casual as anything. She didn't even blink. At first, I thought I misheard. I blinked at her across the table, the scent of pan-seared scallops hanging in the air like a curtain between us. "Come again?" I asked, setting down my fork slowly, like sudden movement might shatter the illusion. Vanessa leaned forward. "I mean it. An open marriage. I've been reading about it, about how it can enhance emotional honesty, promote growth, let us explore more." I stared at her. Not because the idea was so foreign. Hell, we lived in a city where people called themselves ethically non-monogamous like it was a blood type, but because it was her saying it. My wife of 11 years. My once shy librarian who used to blush when someone said blowjob too loud in a movie theater. Vanessa, why? It was all I could manage. The clink of cutlery in the background seemed distant, like we were underwater. She sighed. "I just feel like we've stalled. Like, you and I are great, but it's become routine. We work. We come home. We have sex once a week if we're not too tired, and even then it's predictable." I filled in. Exactly. I wanted to be angry. Wanted to knock over my wine glass and tell her she was selfish, that marriage isn't a damn hobby you spice up like a dull weekend. But I just sat there, staring at her like she'd grown horns or wings. I wasn't sure which. She pulled a folded sheet of paper from her purse and set it between us like a signed treaty. "Rules," she said. "I've thought it all through. No secrets. No lying. Full honesty. Safe sex, obviously. No bringing people into our home. And, most importantly, no emotional attachments." I didn't touch the paper. "You already have someone in mind, don't you?" I asked. She didn't deny it. Just tilted her head and said, "This isn't about replacing you. It's about rediscovering me." Her voice was so calm it pissed me off. I nodded like I was agreeing, but something was moving inside me, something bitter and dark. Something sharp. When we got home, I couldn't sleep. I lay there next to her warm body under the sheets, feeling like a ghost in my own bed. She curled into me at one point, out of habit maybe, or guilt. Her leg draped over mine and her hand slipped beneath my shirt, fingers trailing over my chest like nothing had changed. I didn't move, didn't speak. Later, I heard her phone buzz on the nightstand. The screen glowed for a moment, casting a pale blue light over her sleeping face. She looked satisfied. The next morning, I found the list again. I read every line like it was scripture. Rule number 3, no jealousy. I stared at that one for a while. Then I folded the paper back up, poured myself a whiskey at 8 a.m., and stared out the window. I didn't argue, didn't rage, didn't cry, but something changed in me that night. Not a break, not yet, but a shift, a rebalancing of gravity. Like I was no longer orbiting her world, but preparing to carve my own. She wanted freedom. Fine. But she forgot something vital. So did I. I wasn't the man she thought she could outgrow. I was still watching. And I was learning. The next morning, she left the list by the coffee pot, like it was some kind of love note. I stared at the folded sheet, steam from my mug curling up like smoke from a quiet fuse. I didn't touch it for 5 minutes. 10. Eventually, I opened it, if only to understand the battlefield she had mapped out. The rules. No lying. Always use protection. No jealousy. No emotional entanglements. Be honest with each other about encounters. Do not bring partners into our shared home. Weekend nights are free unless otherwise agreed. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. If feelings shift, discuss it. Either partner can opt out at any time. I read it once. Then again. Then I laughed. Not loudly. Not bitterly. Just a dry, humorless breath through my nose. It was so, her. So sanitized. So painfully clinical for something that was about opening our bodies and hearts to other people. But still, I didn't tear it up. Instead, I folded it back neatly and slid it into my briefcase. I wasn't planning to follow it. Not exactly. I just needed to keep it close, like a chessboard mid-match. Vanessa had made the first move. It was my turn to think 5 steps ahead. At work, things were normal. Too normal. Spreadsheets, client calls, routine. But I found myself glancing more often than usual at the desk across the hallway. Rachel. She'd been with the company for 2 years, smart, competent, unshakably poised. I hadn't thought about her much outside of deadlines and calendars until now. That morning, she wore a dark green blouse tucked into high-waisted slacks. Nothing extravagant, but somehow it sang. Her dark hair was swept up, exposing her neck, the sharp line of her jaw. She caught me looking. I smiled politely. She didn't smile back. She stared, lips parted slightly, head tilted like she was filing something away. Interesting. Later that afternoon, she brought me a corrected report. No comment, just placed it on my desk with a sticky note. Saw this typo before it went out. Thought you'd want to know. I looked up. She was already walking away. Something in her walk, assured, almost predatory, stirred something in me. Something that hadn't been stirred in months. Vanessa had started dressing differently, too. That night, she walked out in a red dress that hugged her hips like it was afraid to let go. Her makeup was heavier, hair pinned back, collarbone shimmering with something scented and expensive. "You look nice," I said. She smiled like I'd just handed her a compliment I didn't mean. "Thanks," she said, checking her lipstick in the hallway mirror. "I might be late." "For what?" She paused. "Dinner. Drinks. A gallery thing." A gallery thing. The kind of vague she used when she didn't want to be questioned. I nodded. "I'll probably be asleep." I wasn't. She left around 7. No explanation, no names. At 7:04, I texted Rachel. "Me? Dinner Friday?" She didn't reply immediately, but she read it. That was enough for now. When Vanessa came home, sometime past midnight, she tried to be quiet. Failed. I heard her heels click across the hardwood. The front door closed too gently. Heard her pad into the bathroom, then into the kitchen. The faint click of the fridge. A drink, maybe, or an excuse to stand still and not answer her conscience. I stayed in bed, eyes open in the dark. The sheets still smelled like her. But now, I wasn't sure I wanted them to. The next morning, she was whistling while making coffee. Whistling. That was new. She wore a silk robe, nothing underneath. Her skin still flushed from the night before, though not with me. She brushed past me in the kitchen, her bare thigh brushing against my leg. "Morning," she said lightly, pouring herself a mug. I nodded, lips tight. She looked at me, head tilted like she was trying to gauge something. "You okay?" "Yeah." Seemed quiet. Just tired. She didn't push. She never did when she thought she'd won. But in her mind, this wasn't betrayal. This was modern love. Expansion. Self-discovery. She had convinced herself that she was evolving. I didn't say a word. But as I drove to work that day, Rachel replied. "Rachel, Friday works." "Where?" I smiled. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel tired. She left the house at 6:42 p.m. sharp. Her perfume hung in the air long after she closed the door, like a ghost pressing lips to the collar of my shirt. I didn't ask where she was going. I didn't need to. I just watched from the upstairs window, one hand clutching the curtain, the other balled tight at my side. The Uber pulled up. I didn't recognize the driver, but the figure that slid into the back seat, tall, square-shouldered, smug in that invisible way men get when they think the woman next to them chose them. That man, I didn't need to know. Not by name. Not by face. His role was enough. I let the curtain fall and turned away. Back in the kitchen, her wine glass still sat on the island. Lipstick print etched along the rim like a kiss she didn't want to give me. I poured it down the drain. Slowly. Watched the crimson swirl and disappear. It was 6:58 p.m. when I texted Rachel. "Me? Still good for Friday?" "Rachel, absolutely." 2 words. But they landed like an anchor in my chest. At 9:30 p.m., I was still downstairs. The TV played some nature documentary, lions stalking gazelle under a heat-drenched sky. I wasn't watching. I kept glancing at the door, at the clock, at the silence. At 11 p.m., I turned the volume down just enough to hear the sound of my own breath. At 1:50 a.m., I gave up pretending to care about the TV. Went upstairs, brushed my teeth, crawled into bed that still smelled faintly of her. I didn't sleep. Not really. Just drifted in that half place where your mind replays things you wish you'd said, while your body waits for impact. Then, 2:37 a.m., the door creaked. A key turned. Light footsteps. A pause. Then the unmistakable sound of heels kicked off carelessly by the door. She moved like she didn't care if she woke me. Like she expected I was too weak to confront anything. Maybe she was right. But I was awake. And I saw her. She tiptoed into the bedroom, tried to slip out of her dress without making noise. The zipper caught. She cursed softly. I didn't move. Just lay there, eyes open, watching her from the shadows. She didn't notice. She tossed the dress on the chair, peeled her bra off like it annoyed her, then turned to the mirror and wiped her mouth. The lipstick smeared more than it faded. Her neck glistened with sweat, not the glow of a warm night. The aftershock of sex. She climbed into bed without a word, without a kiss, without so much as a glance in my direction. I could hear her breathing, slow and content, like a woman who had been well taken care of. Me? I stared at the ceiling for another hour. I didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't offer. The next morning, I made coffee before she came downstairs. Set a mug at her usual spot, creamer on the side, just like I always had. She walked in, still wearing my old college t-shirt, her post-sex uniform these days. I guessed. "Morning," she said softly. I nodded. "Sleep well?" She paused at the mug. I did. A small smile tugged at her lips, not directed at me, but at some memory only she could see. "Good," I said. She looked at me then, maybe expecting jealousy, hurt, accusation. But I gave her none of it. Just quiet, controlled indifference. She didn't know what to do with that. Vanessa liked when I gave her power to wrestle with. But when I stood still, she lost her footing. She sipped her coffee. "I might be out again Friday," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Plans?" She shrugged. "Possibly." I smiled. "Same here." She blinked. "What?" "I've got dinner with someone." A beat. Then two. She tried to recover. "Oh, well, that's good, right? That's what this is about, right?" She stared into her cup like it had answers at the bottom. And I could see it, the shift. The first crack in her confidence. Vanessa didn't expect me to play the game. She expected me to endure it. Later that day, I texted Rachel. "Me. There's this place on 6th and LaSalle. Quiet. Intimate. Wineless like a novel." "Rachel, you had me at wine." I smiled. Not because I was falling for Rachel. Not yet. But because Vanessa thought I'd forgotten how to be wanted. And she was about to be reminded. Work had always been a sanctuary, a place of numbers, logic, and clean outcomes. But that week, every meeting felt like a performance, every hallway a stage. And Rachel? She was no longer just my secretary. She was the disruption I didn't know I needed. It started subtle. A smirk during a budget presentation. Her heels clicking a little slower as she passed my door. One morning, she wore a navy blue blouse buttoned one snap lower than necessary. I wasn't the only one who noticed. Mark from HR nearly dropped his coffee. But Rachel? She looked straight at me when she passed, like the moment was just for us. I played it cool. I always had. But something inside me had shifted. At lunch, I passed her in the break room. She was leaning against the counter, fingers wrapped around a bottled water, scrolling through her phone. I reached for the fridge just as she stepped aside. Our arms brushed. Static. Something electric. She didn't apologize. She didn't move. "Big client meeting this afternoon?" she asked. "Yeah. Boardroom at 3. She raised an eyebrow. "Need anything prepped?" "Just your presence." She laughed. "You sure Vanessa's okay with you flirting at work now?" I froze, not because I was guilty, but because she knew. She read my silence like a well-thumbed page. "I'm not judging," she added, voice softer now. "Just saying." I noticed the shift. What shift? The one where you stopped looking like a man getting slowly devoured. I met her gaze. "And now," she said, leaning in just a bit, "you look like a man about to bite back." The air between us thickened. I left the room without another word, but I felt her eyes on my back the whole way out. 3 o'clock arrived fast. The boardroom was glass-paneled and cold, the kind of room built to kill instinct. But Rachel sat beside me, taking notes with poised fingers, occasionally nudging her foot against mine under the table. Accidental. Deliberate. God, I wasn't sure. But every contact was a live wire. As the meeting dragged on, I found myself stealing glances, her profile sharp, focused. Her lips slightly parted when she listened intently. She smelled faintly of sandalwood and something sweeter underneath, something that would linger in a man's sheets long after the body was gone. Afterward, the others filtered out. Rachel lingered. "You free now?" I asked. She tilted her head. "What do you have in mind?" "I could use help going over the Langston portfolio. It's a bit of a mess." "Langston's always a mess," she said, following me to my office. Once the door shut behind her, the air changed. No pretense. No audience. I sat behind my desk. She stood across from me, arms crossed. "You're not really thinking about Langston," she said. "No." She walked around the desk slowly, brushing her hand along the edge like she was tracing the path of something inevitable. "Are you trying to make her jealous?" she asked. I shook my head. "She doesn't get jealous. That's one of her rules." Rachel laughed, low, warm. "Everyone gets jealous. Eventually." I looked up. She was standing right beside me now. I didn't touch her, but she leaned in, adjusted my tie. Her fingers stayed there a moment too long. "Loose knot," she murmured, eyes locked on mine. I could have kissed her, could have pulled her into my lap and made her forget the goddamn rules. But I didn't. Not yet. "Friday," I said instead. She smirked. "Still on?" "Absolutely." She turned to leave, slow and deliberate. At the door, she looked back. "Don't wear this tie. It doesn't suit you anymore." The door clicked shut behind her, and I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. I was playing with fire, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel cold. That night, Vanessa came home early. She smelled of wine and foreign cologne, her hair slightly tousled. She slipped her heels off in the hallway, humming something low and suggestive. I sat in the living room, book open but unread. She looked at me. "You're still up? I could ask you the same." She stretched, long and theatrical. "I'm not the one who looks like they've been up to something." I smiled faintly. "Neither are you." She froze for just a second, a blink, but I saw it, and I knew. I wasn't the same man she thought she'd left behind. I made the reservation with meticulous care. Not just any place, her place. The one Vanessa used to call our corner of Italy, back when she still slipped her hand into mine across candlelit tables and laughed like no one else existed. Lino's, where the waiters knew her wine order, and the manager once brought her tiramisu on the house because he said her smile brightened the entire damn restaurant. I booked the same table we used to sit at. Center of the back wall. Good lighting, great acoustics, and just enough privacy to pretend the world didn't exist. I texted Rachel 3 days in advance. "Me, dinner. Lino's. 8 p.m. Friday. We're something you love." She replied within minutes. "Rachel, I don't love much, but I have a dress that makes men forget their names." Me. "Perfect. I'll bring the wine." Thursday night, Vanessa was humming again, some sultry melody I didn't recognize. She walked around in nothing but a silk robe and perfume that didn't smell like hers. Or maybe it was. Maybe I just didn't know her anymore. "You're out tomorrow?" she asked casually as she scrolled through her phone on the couch. "Yeah. Dinner. With who?" I looked up from the news, slow and deliberate. "Rachel." The screen of her phone froze mid-scroll. "Your secretary?" "Executive assistant," I corrected, sipping my drink. She stared at me. Not angry, not surprised, but rattled. A tiny shift behind her eyes, like a crack spreading through frosted glass. "You didn't ask for permission." "We don't need permission, remember? Rule number 3. Vanessa didn't reply, just turned back to her phone, but her fingers didn't move. Friday came fast. I got to Lino's early. Wore the charcoal blazer Vanessa had always loved, the one she said made me look like I belonged on a GQ cover. I ordered her favorite wine, Barolo 2015. Told the waiter not to pour it yet. Just let the bottle breathe. Then Rachel walked in, and every man in the room forgot what they were eating. She wore a deep emerald dress, form-fitting, with a plunging neckline that didn't scream so much as smolder. Her hair was up, except for one teasing strand that fell near her collarbone. She looked expensive, dangerous, and entirely untouchable. Until she sat across from me. "You clean up nice," she said, eyes scanning me. "Had to match the dress," I replied, my gaze unapologetic. The waiter approached, suddenly flustered, and offered menus. Rachel didn't open hers. "Order for me," she said, leaning forward. "I want to know what you think I'd like." I did, and I got it right. The appetizers came. Wine poured. Conversation flowed like we'd known each other years longer than we had. She laughed at my dry jokes, rolled her eyes at the perfect moments, and touched my wrist once when she leaned in to tell a story. And then, halfway through the meal, I saw her, Vanessa, walking in on the arm of a man who looked like he sold protein powder and probably spoke in reps and macros. Tan, cocky, smiling too wide. Her hand curled around his bicep like she was auditioning for a role she didn't even want. She hadn't seen us yet. Not until she turned toward the hostess and spotted me across the room. Her smile faltered. Her stride slowed. Rachel noticed before I said a word. "Someone you know?" "My wife." Rachel didn't look away. She just took another sip of her wine and slowly reached across the table, her fingers brushing over mine. I smiled. Not at Vanessa. Not at the gym bro she clung to. I smiled at Rachel, and Vanessa saw it. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, like she couldn't decide if she should approach or flee. She walked right past us, stiff as marble. Didn't say a word, didn't meet my eyes. But I felt it. For the first time since this whole charade started, she was the one out of control. Rachel arched an eyebrow as she twirled her pasta. So, that was fun. I chuckled. You have no idea. She leaned in. Are you really doing this for her? Or for you? I thought about it. The list. The rules. The night spent staring at the ceiling while my wife smeared stranger's cologne across our sheets. And Rachel. The way she looked at me without pity. Does it matter? I asked. Rachel's eyes gleamed. Not to me. We finished dinner. Lingered over dessert. She touched my thigh once beneath the table. Not an invitation. A signal. When we walked out of the restaurant, Vanessa and her date were nowhere in sight. But her echo lingered. This time, I wasn't following it. The next morning, Vanessa didn't say a word. She made coffee without looking at me, her robe tied tighter than usual, hair wrapped in that green towel she only wore when she was rattled. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon toast and tension. I sat at the table with the paper, unread, watching her over the rim of my mug. You were at Lino's last night, she finally said. I folded the paper. So were you. She turned. With Rachel. You with the gym mascot, I said calmly. Her jaw twitched. He's not. Don't care, I interrupted. She narrowed her eyes, taking a slow sip of coffee. It's different. Yeah, I noticed. You were the one looking over your shoulder. That stung her. I could tell. She tried to mask it by leaning against the counter like a casual observer of her own disaster. So, what is this? She asked. Revenge. No, I said. This is me living by your rules. You don't even like rules. No, I repeated, but I'm very good at following them when I have to. She looked away, biting her bottom lip, something she used to do when she was flustered. You smiled at her. I smile at people all the time. Not like that. I stood, dropped my mug in the sink with a clean clink. And you haven't smiled like that in months. Vanessa said nothing. She knew I was right. At work, Rachel was waiting with a fresh report in hand, blazer sharp, lipstick daring. But her eyes, those said more than words ever could. She didn't ask about last night. She didn't need to. But at 10:47 a.m., she slid a note onto my desk without a word. You handled her perfectly. I smiled. By mid-afternoon, the office was quieter. Rachel leaned against my doorframe, arms folded, watching me like I was the most curious man she'd ever seen. She's going to come unglued soon, she said. I know. Are you ready for that? I paused. I'm not sure, but I think I'm past the point of caring. Rachel nodded slowly, her fingers brushing the frame once before walking away. That night, Vanessa came home early. And drunk. Not sloppy. Not loud. Just loose enough to think honesty was sexy again. She kicked off her heels in the hallway and wandered into the kitchen, barefoot and smirking. Do you like her? She asked suddenly. I looked up from the stovetop. Who? Don't play dumb. I'm not playing, I said, turning off the burner. You never asked if I liked the guys you were sleeping with. That's because I didn't have to. I turned. And now you do? She walked up to me, close enough to smell the cheap Cabernet on her breath. I thought you were boring. You told me I was safe, I said. Same thing. I held her gaze. No, safe means predictable. Boring means invisible. She tilted her head, processing that. Well, she said, maybe I didn't want predictable anymore. And now I don't want competition. There it was. She said it out loud. Vanessa, the woman who wrote the damn rulebook, just admitted that watching me be wanted was unbearable. Then stop playing games, I said. She stared at me. What are we doing, really? I'm living my life. You're reacting to it. Vanessa walked out of the kitchen, but not before brushing her fingers against my arm. That night, I lay in bed beside her. She shifted under the sheets, reached across the divide. Do you remember the trip to Mendocino? She asked softly. That bed and breakfast? Of course. We didn't leave the room for 2 days. I smiled. That was a good weekend. Her hand slid across my stomach. We can have that again, you know. No, I said gently. We can't. She hesitated. Why not? Because now I know what it feels like to be wanted again. The silence that followed was thicker than any scream. She rolled away from me, her breath shallow. And I knew, truly knew, she was unraveling. The woman who'd handed me a contract was now struggling to hold on to the man she thought would never fight back. And I wasn't done yet. She waited until Sunday morning to confront me. Not late at night when things were still simmering, but after pancakes, after coffee, after pretending to be normal. She walked into the living room wearing my shirt, an old, worn thing she hadn't touched in years, and sat across from me like we were equals. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded slowly, muted the TV. About last night. About this. I leaned back, watching her play with the fraying edge of the sleeve. "This being, you know damn well." I kept my voice even. "Say it." She glared. "You and Rachel." I smiled slightly. "Takes two. You're trying to hurt me." "No," I said. That would imply I still cared enough to try. That landed like a slap. She looked away, swallowing. "So what then? You're just done." I didn't say that. "But you're punishing me. You want me to feel what you felt." I stood, walked to the window. "You handed me a list of rules, Vanessa. No jealousy, no emotions, full honesty. You laid the path. I'm just walking it." She rose from the couch. "It was supposed to be different." "How?" "I thought it would help us. I thought we'd come back together stronger. By sleeping with other people?" I turned. "You needed to fuck a stranger to remember I exist?" "It wasn't like that, eh?" "No." I stepped closer. "Then tell me what it was like, Vanessa. Describe the moment when your self-growth started between someone else's sheets." She looked like she might cry, but she didn't. She never did. Too proud. Too polished. Her lips trembled instead, and her hands fisted at her sides. "You're enjoying this," she whispered. I didn't answer. "Tell me you don't care about her," she demanded. "Tell me Rachel means nothing." "You first," I said. "Tell me Jim Boy meant nothing." Silence. Long, deafening silence. Then, "I don't want to lose you." "You thought I was already lost," I replied. "So you made peace with it." "I wanted something different." "You got something different." She stepped forward, closer now, eyes wild. "We can stop. The open thing. Just call it off. No more games. No more pretending. And the damage? We patch it." I laughed quietly. "You can't unring a bell." "I don't believe that." "Of course you don't. You never believed this would backfire." Vanessa sat again, folding in on herself. The woman who once smirked in midnight heels now looked small. Still beautiful, yes, but uncertain. For once, the balance had shifted. "You slept with her?" she asked softly. I met her eyes. "Not yet." Her breath caught. "But I will." That broke something. She stood, shaky now. "I need air." I nodded, watching her grab her keys and purse. The door slammed harder than it needed to. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. I texted Rachel 10 minutes later. "Me, dinner again soon?" "Rachel, you read my mind." Later that afternoon, Vanessa returned. Quietly. No dramatic re-entry. Just a closed door and footsteps upstairs. I heard the shower run for over an hour. She didn't come down for dinner. I didn't bring her a plate. When I passed our bedroom later, the door was shut. Locked. A part of me wondered if she was crying on the other side. But a bigger part, the newer part, didn't care. That night, I slept alone. And for the first time in years, I slept well. The first time Rachel stayed late, it wasn't planned. A client emergency, some tax document mess, an excuse neither of us needed. She sat on the edge of my desk, ankle crossed over knee, reading lines off a spreadsheet while I pretended to focus. "I like the way you work," she said. I looked up. Efficient. Focused. Deliberate. Quietly confident. She leaned forward, her voice lower now. "It's kind of sexy." My fingers stopped on the keyboard. There was a long pause, too long for the office. Then she smiled, like she could read every word I didn't say. "I should go," she said, slipping off the desk. Her skirt shifted just enough to let my imagination finish the sentence. But she didn't leave. Instead, she walked behind me, let her hand brush my shoulder. She leaned close to my ear. "But next time, don't resist." She was gone before I could speak. That night, Vanessa was already home, barefoot, curled on the couch in yoga pants and a sweater that hung off one shoulder. Her phone was face down on the table, but I could see the way her thumb hovered near it. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Long day?" she asked. "Productive." She nodded. "Rachel help with that?" She did. Still no eye contact. Her jaw tensed. I walked past her into the kitchen. She followed 5 minutes later, wine glass in hand. "I was thinking," she said carefully, "maybe we should go away this weekend. Just the two of us." "To do what?" "To talk. Be somewhere that doesn't have her perfume in the air." I didn't answer right away. She moved closer. "I miss you. You gave me up before I left." That's not fair. It's honest. Her fingers slid over the counter toward mine. Let me fix this. You can't, I said softly. You opened a door, and something walked in. She pulled back, wounded but not surprised. You think she's better than me? I met her eyes. She's not playing games. That shut her down. She left the kitchen without another word. The next night, I found Vanessa sitting on the edge of our bed, legs crossed, in the kind of lingerie I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was loose, wavy, touched with that scent I used to associate with anniversaries. I want you, she said. No, you want control back, I replied. Her face fell. I'm still your wife, she said. You chose to be something else. She stood, walked toward me. Her hand slid up my chest. Let me remind you who I am. You're too late, I said, stepping back. You only want me when someone else does too. You think she loves you. She snapped. No, I said. But she sees me. You haven't in a long time. She slapped me then. Not hard. Not out of hate. Out of desperation. She gasped, covering her mouth. I didn't mean. I know, I said, walking away. But you did it anyway. The next morning, she was gone before I woke. Her side of the bed cold. No note. No text. Rachel showed up at work with 2 coffees. No questions. No judgments. Just presence. At lunch, we sat in my office. She reached over and straightened my tie. You look tense. Rough morning, I admitted. She stood, walked behind me, hands finding my shoulders. Then let me help, she said. I let her. Her hands were firm, soothing, skilled. But it wasn't just about tension. It was intimacy. Unspoken. Unforced. Everything I hadn't felt in months. When she kissed my neck, I didn't stop her. When she moved to the front of the desk and sat on the edge, pulling me closer by the tie, I followed. And when she whispered, let me in, I didn't hesitate. That night, Vanessa called me at 10:41 p.m. I didn't answer. She sent a text. Vanessa, I made a mistake. Then another. Vanessa, I want to come home. I stared at the screen. Then I set the phone down, turned back to Rachel, and kissed her slow, deep, deliberate, and didn't reply. The Monday after everything changed, I walked into the office with a clear head and a heavier step. Not burdened. Weighted. With purpose. With clarity. With something I hadn't felt in months. Direction. Rachel was already there. Early, as always. Her desk was immaculate. Her blouse a crisp ivory that clung to her in ways I'd memorized over the weekend. When she looked up, our eyes met like a private code had just passed between us. Morning, she said, voice velvet. Morning. She followed me into the office like she belonged there, because she did now. I didn't have to say it. Neither of us did. But I still said it anyway. I'm recommending you for lead administrative coordinator. Rachel tilted her head. Promotion? You've earned it. Not just for what's between us. You've carried this department when others clocked out months ago. She walked around my desk, stood close enough for her perfume to cancel out every trace of Vanessa's memory. I don't need a title, she said. No, I replied, but you deserve one. She smiled. Not coy. Not grateful. Just real. Later that day, I submitted the paperwork. No questions were asked, her credentials spoke for themselves. But I could feel the whispers starting before the ink dried. At home, Vanessa was waiting. She sat at the kitchen table, hands clasped, looking like a woman rehearsing her closing argument. I saw the HR notice, she said. Then you promoted her? Yes. To what? More than she was before. Vanessa's laugh was sharp. And this has nothing to do with you sleeping with her? No, I said. It has everything to do with me waking up. She stood, pacing now, fingers threading into her hair. This isn't what I meant when I said open. This was supposed to make us stronger. No, I said, it made you stronger while I was supposed to shrink. She turned, voice rising. You're just punishing me. No, I said quietly. I'm leaving you. The words dropped like a steel anchor. She froze. What? I'm filing for divorce. Papers are in the drawer. You can read them or not. Sign them or not. But it's happening. Her face twisted, disbelief giving way to a fury she tried to swallow. You don't mean that. I do. You still love me. I don't know what I feel for you anymore, I admit it. But I know what I don't feel. Safety. Trust. Us. She looked away. So you're just going to throw it all away? No, I said. You already did. I'm just picking up the pieces. She stormed out then. Took the car. Left a trail of perfume and fury in her wake. I didn't follow. The next morning, the divorce papers were signed on the kitchen counter. No note. Just ink. At work, Rachel found me in the break room. You look lighter, she said, brushing her fingers across my hand as she passed me a coffee. I am. You free tonight? I nodded. I want to celebrate. Promotion? Freedom. That night, I didn't go back to the house. I went to Rachel's. Her place was clean, modern, filled with sunlight and minimalism. It felt untouched by the kind of decay that had haunted my marriage. She poured wine. We made dinner together. We talked, not about Vanessa, not about pain, but about books, music, strange dreams we hadn't said aloud before. When we made love that night, it wasn't revenge. It was a declaration that I wasn't a ghost anymore, that I was here, alive, awake, wanted. It happened on a Wednesday, ordinary by most measures. The sun was out. Traffic was predictable. Coffee was a bit too strong. I sat in my office, door open, glancing over a quarterly report while Rachel organized files in her new space. Her new desk was sleek, minimalist glass, positioned strategically outside my door, visible to every passing exec. She wore a dark red blouse, the kind that made every man walking by forget what they were looking for. But she wasn't dressed to impress. She just wore confidence like perfume. She caught me watching. You need something? She asked, smirking. Just appreciating talent, I said. Before she could reply, the elevator dinged. And in walked Vanessa. She didn't hesitate, didn't announce herself. She marched across the floor like she still had a right to the air here. Her heels stabbed the carpet. Her hair was pulled back too tight. Her mouth a rigid line that said this wasn't a visit, it was a confrontation. Rachel didn't flinch. She stood calmly behind her desk, fingers laced, like she'd been expecting this. Where is he? Vanessa asked her, voice sharp. Rachel smiled slightly. You're looking at him. Vanessa turned to me. I stood. Slowly. Calmly. Vanessa, I said. You could have answered your phone, she snapped. I saw the call. She took 2 steps into my office. So this is it? This is mine now, I said. My office. My team. My life. She looked around like the walls had betrayed her. You replaced me. No, I corrected. You removed yourself. Rachel sat casually on the edge of her desk. If you're here for a scene, you should know we charge admission now. Vanessa shot her a glare. You think you've won? Rachel leaned forward. No winners here. Just adults making choices. Vanessa turned back to me. You think she's real? That she'll stick around when the newness fades? I smiled. She doesn't need to stick around to prove anything. She already showed up when it mattered. I made a mistake, Vanessa said quietly, her voice cracking for the first time in weeks. I agree, I said. But the bigger one would be staying in something dead. Her eyes glistened. She didn't try to hide it. I loved you, she whispered. And I loved you, I said. But love needs more than permission slips to cheat. She turned, said nothing more, and walked out. No final plea. No last kiss. Just silence. Rachel walked in, closed the door behind her, leaned against it. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Yeah, that was the last loose thread. She crossed the room, stood beside me. So, new rules, she asked. I looked at her. Really looked. The way she filled the space around me, not as a replacement, but as something new. Something built, not salvaged. No rules, I said. Just honesty. She smiled. Then here's honesty. I wasn't planning on falling for my boss. And I wasn't planning on promoting the woman who pulled me out of a dying marriage. We laughed. Not out of amusement, but out of relief. The weight was gone. I kissed her then. Not as escape. Not as rebellion. But as arrival. We stood there for a while, the office quiet, the world outside continuing in its usual chaos. But here was calm. Later, I changed the nameplate outside the door. Rachel Ellis, Administrative Director. People would talk. Let them. This wasn't a scandal. This was a rebuild. And this time, the foundation was solid. The house felt bigger without her in it. Not because it was emptier, but because it finally breathed. Her energy, once vibrant and charming, had become a weight in the walls. A static hum of dissatisfaction, of quiet contempt. Now, it was quiet. Not painfully, but peacefully. The kind of quiet that lets you hear yourself think. Vanessa moved out the first week of April. 2 suitcases. 1 small truck of furniture. No teary scenes, no impassioned final pleas. Just signatures, logistics, and a silence that didn't need translation. She left the key on the kitchen counter with a post-it that said simply, "Good luck." I didn't reply. The first thing I did was repaint the bedroom. Took down the gauzy curtains she insisted on, replaced them with sleek slate gray blinds. I tore out the faded beige carpet and laid new hardwood, oak, rich, warm, clean. Rachel stood in the doorway that first night of the renovation, barefoot, a glass of wine in one hand. "You're reclaiming this place," she said. "I'm rewriting it." She smiled. "Need help?" She stayed the night after that. Then the next. Then for good. Her toothbrush took up permanent residence in the bathroom. Her blazer hung on the back of my desk chair. There was an extra pair of heels by the front door that I caught myself tripping over more than once, and I didn't mind. We didn't define it. We didn't need to. Some mornings she left earlier than I did, tying her hair back with one hand while stealing bites of my toast. Other mornings, we sat on the porch with matching mugs, watching the sunrise like we'd earned the view. And maybe we had. The neighbors noticed, of course. One even asked casually, "So Rachel's living with you now?" I smiled. "Looks that way." They nodded, lips tight with unspoken judgments. I didn't care. The same people who waved at Vanessa's SUV every morning now waved at Rachel as she walked out with confidence they couldn't ignore. Inside the office, she was every bit the professional. Sharp, precise, not a whisper of favoritism. If anything, she was harder on herself, on us, than anyone else. But there were moments behind closed doors, her fingers brushing mine as we reached for the same pen, her eyes locking with mine mid-meeting when someone said something absurd. A shared smirk. A secret world. Vanessa called once. Just once. She wanted to ask if we could revisit things. I didn't answer. She didn't call again. One night, a month into our new rhythm, Rachel stood in the middle of the kitchen, hair up, oversized tee hanging off one shoulder. "You know," she said, "I don't believe in perfect endings." I leaned against the counter. "Me either. But this," she continued, looking around, "this feels earned." "It is." She walked over, wrapped her arms around me, tucked her face into my chest. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Any of it?" "No," I said. "Even the pain had a purpose." She looked up. "And now I feel free." She smiled. "Freedom tastes better shared." We didn't make big promises. We didn't need to. The house, the office, the long drives with no destination, those were enough. Love didn't arrive like a parade. It grew, quietly, between two people who were tired of pretending. And when you've lost yourself once, the real miracle isn't finding someone new. It's finding someone who makes you want to find yourself again.